So we can jump right into it because I have a couple of questions and I'm very interested in certain parts of your career or life. So let me just start off. Tell me, from Air Force to acting, like what's the story behind it? So kind of like why?
Yeah, I got that. I got that quite a lot. Kind of leaving the forces from people that don't really know me too well. Just saying, that's a bit of a career change, isn't it? Even from within the Air Force, they have a very specific package that you do whenever anybody's leaving. They give you a good package to kind of reintegrate you into society. And so when they were giving that, they were going around asking, it was a group exercise of people, what are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to be a builder, or I've got my own business plan, this, that, and the other. And then it comes to me and it's like, oh, I'm going to be an actor. Yeah, so my dad was always kind of saying, make sure you've got a career behind you, because, he meant well, because he wants me to be successful and to have a reliable income. And the arts is never seen as that. But again, somebody quite recently said to me that, reliable jobs, are the first people that are made redundant, the bankers and all these places like that are seen as reliable. They're actually not so reliable. And if you're going to be self-employed, what better place to be than in a creative industry? Because you just literally let your juices flow and go and do as much as you can. And the only thing that's really stopping you is you. So that's a cool way to look at things. But anyway, so I tried my hand at retail for a bit and didn't enjoy it as much. I'd started off as a Saturday boy at a computer game shop and really enjoyed it, actually. Within 3 years, I was deputy manager of the shop, and I was like, yeah, I've got some real momentum with this. This could be my thing. And then they turned around and said, you're not ready to have your own store yet. And I was kind of 19, 20, and I was like thinking I knew it all. I was like, oh, well, screw you then, I'm going to leave. Almost hoping that they might kind of go, oh, we'll give you a shot, and they never did. So I was just like, no, screw it. And I can remember my dad shouting at me, going, "What are you doing? You had a great career path. Just because you didn't get what you wanted, you should have just stuck with it a bit longer, or whatever." So yeah, he was really disappointed in me, and I went to work in a bar, and it was like double the hours and half the pay, and a lot more stress and stuff. But it was actually really cool. I was getting to meet people and interact with them, and you kind of get a sense of when something's going to kick off or how people are going to react to certain things. So I did that for like 9 months, and my dad actually went to me and said, "Do you know what? 6 months ago, I was so disappointed in you. Now I couldn't be prouder, just because you may have less money, but you're happier and you've taught me loads. So I'm never going to question your decision again." And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And that's when I actually decided to join the Air Force. It was just to challenge myself more than anything, because my brother had been in and my grandfather during the war. They'd both been in it. So I can remember being young.
It was in the family, yeah. So
yeah, and it was the Air Force. So if I was going to join a force, it was always going to be the Air Force, for that family tie. I was just kind of thinking of it like, let's just give it a go. And if I can't do it, then I can't do it. At least I've given it my best shot. And then I had a 10-year career.
Wow.
It's literally just like, people literally said, why do you want to join up? Do you want to end up being a warrant officer? And I just said, I want to see how far I can get. But yeah, I did that. And yeah, here I am.
Awesome. So pretty much you were thinking about it, and then one day you said, like, I'm gonna do it. And were you scared? Because especially like, it's very current right now. A lot of people tell me that they are a little bit scared to go and be self-employed, and having their own business. And for me, I'm a freelancer, so I see it as very opposite, because I think having a job is very unpredictable, because you never know what's going to happen. So for me, I get it, but many people and listeners and viewers are scared to do it. in my case, it was the best decision I've made. How about you?
Yeah, I don't regret a thing. There's the old adage of you have to suffer for your art. And I get that more so now than ever, because when I did leave, I was going from, over £2,000 a month down to not knowing when my next payday is going to be. And you know what? That is scary. And the closer it gets to the time of actually leaving, the scarier that becomes. And you start questioning yourself, am I doing the right thing? And it just took me some time to kind of readjust back to civilian life, but also to look at it and go, right, finances, what can I live without? What do I not need? What is a massive luxury? And I literally got it down to having a phone, having a car and car insurance, and the various things that I needed to absolutely live, because I needed a phone to be in contact. I needed my car to get to auditions or drive to sets and whatever. So I needed that flexibility. But again, that could be sold off and I could use train tickets. But again, it's the balance of how much does a train ticket cost versus how much does the upkeep of a car cost. And I actually really got down to the nitty gritty, and it's horrible to do, actually. It's really kind of daunting when you actually look through. But also kind of eye-opening, because you look at some of the stuff that you got maybe going out on direct debits and you go, what is this £8 to blah, blah? And you're going, oh God, I don't even remember doing that. And that's been going out every month. And you realize that that's maybe £160 a year or whatever that I could have saved. That's just gone on nothing. And you kind of kicking yourself for, how much more money could I have had? But if I'd have just done this earlier. But anyway, yeah, I think that's what a lot of people are scared of, is that certainly the financial thing. People get very comfortable in a bubble, into their normality, and to be extracted out of that, whether by force or by choice, it's quite unsettling and quite unnerving. But you've just got to trust in your vision, and I quite like using that as a driving force, because at the end of the day, I could literally sit downstairs and do absolutely nothing, watching telly, and let benefits come in, or beg, borrow, and steal from family or whatever. But I'm not that kind of person. I don't sit comfortable with that. I've got a partner who's massively supportive, and during the pandemic, we've actually moved in together and bought our own house. And she knows it's going to be peaks and troughs. I'm going to get some money coming in some months, and other months I'm not going to get as much coming in. But she knows that I'm hardworking and dedicated, and she knows that anything that I get, even if I get like a call back from an audition, she knows that I'm going to give that my all until the end process, whether that's a sorry, not right now, or the last day of a tour that's gone on for 2 years. She knows I'll give it my all for that project and whatever projects I have going on. And if I have 2 or 3, great, I've got quite a bit coming in. So to have that support there, that's really, really helpful and really reassuring, and kind of another boost as well. It's proof that somebody else believes in me, and people can get that as well. People can feel very isolated when they go into self-employment, and you can get that just by networking. Networking is probably the biggest thing that you can do, because at the worst thing is you have a few more friends that are like-minded and that you can chew the fat with and chat about. And the best scenarios are you get actual networks that say, or people that go, oh, that sounds interesting what you're doing, I could use you, or maybe we could collaborate, or maybe we could do this, that, and the other. And the important thing is, when those very rare but really big moments happen, is you've got to see it through. It can't be one of those things like where you're in the pub with a mate and go, we should go on holiday and do this, that, and the other, and you never end up doing it. You've got to follow up and see it through, because even if you think that person might not be interested anymore, just, drop them an email, drop them a phone call. Oh, do you remember me? Do you know who I am? Keep on their radar. They might be busy at that time, and that's why they're not getting back to you, but keep going and keep doing it. Because eventually they'll say, yes, we're going to do this, because you're either annoying me and I want to get rid of you, or it's actually a really good idea and we'll actually do it. I don't know which one's more real, but I know which one I'd probably choose if I was in their shoes.
I'm glad you mentioned being supported and having people around you who believe in you. Of course, firstly, you have to believe in yourself. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
nothing is possible. So I always want to ask actors one thing. So you go to auditions, and there's so many auditions that actors go to, and they're constantly getting notes, they're constantly getting no's, and a lot of criticism, like constructive criticism, but going and giving your best, and people always say no, so you get like maybe 30 no's and then one yes, or maybe 100 no's and then one yes. Like, what do you do not to give up? Because it has to be frustrating.
It is. Rejection at any time of life is kind of a little bit soul destroying. When the first time you ask a girl or a boy out, the palpitations and the confidence you have to get just to go up to someone and say, will you go out with me? And the fear of that rejection can be overwhelming for some people. And I know it was for me. I was always, believe it or not, very shy when I was younger. I learned that I had to kind of be a bit more bolder, be a bit more braver in myself, just to kind of make friends or ask the girls out or whatever. So yeah, that fear of rejection is always there. I think one of the things for anyone that's wanting to go professional, certainly in acting, is to realize the rejection is real and it's there, and you almost have to try and not take it personally, because sometimes they are just looking for a type fit, or somebody that looks right, and if you just don't look right, you don't look right, and you can't control that to a degree. I mean, you can maybe lose weight or gain weight, or build muscles, or dye your hair or whatever. It's just whatever you're willing to do that. The one thing that I would say to people is to be true to themselves. Believe in what you're trying to do. You're a storyteller, and you obviously have a voice and a vessel that you want to portray a type of story. Everyone that I know that's an actor wants to do certain types of roles and certain types of things, and that's great. If you can nail down exactly what you're trying to achieve, it's a powerful tool to have in your arsenal, because it gives you direction of what you're going for. There's no point in sacrificing any of your values for a payday, because if you end up doing something that's a bit controversial or a bit dodgy, or it's like selling a product that turns out to be, I don't know, carcinogenic and bad for the environment or for people's health or whatever, and you've been the face of that brand, then that face is going to be remembered for a long time, probably more so than the brand itself, because especially if it was a TV commercial or something like that, because it's your face. And if you then say get an audition for something that you really, really are passionate about and want to do, and that gets brought up or is remembered, you'll be questioned on it straight away. And it's nothing to do with your acting technique or ability. It's because you decided to do something like that in the past, and that can haunt people. It's a little bit like Joey in Friends, when he goes for a modeling job and it ends up with what Mario isn't telling you is he's got gonorrhea. And he's really embarrassed and doesn't want people to see it. And that's the kind of thing. It's like, once it's up, it's up. He can only do so much collateral damage afterwards and take all the posters down. But especially in the digital age as well, like, you get something up online, it's there, and it's there for good. And it only takes a couple of people to pick it up and move it around for it to just go wildfire. And that's it. You could potentially do something that like destroys your career before you've even like gotten to where you want to get, and that's really, really sad. So I would definitely say stick to your values and choose. It's really difficult, because obviously you need money to live, but if you've budgeted properly and you can maybe do some temporary work, working in a cafe, in a restaurant, or a bar, or anything. There's lots of temp agencies and temporary jobs, civil servant jobs as well, that you can do part-time, and and you can get some bills coming in, but you're still focusing on doing your auditions and doing what you're passionate about. And like I said, doing the stuff that is valuable and the stories that you want to tell, rather than just picking up a gig. Yes, at the end of the day, every actor wants to work lots, but you want to work lots on the right kinds of things, and eventually something will happen, and you will get a yes, and it'll be something that you're really passionate about, and it might seem like a small thing, but it can be a small thing that either grows, or it can go onto your show reel and can just enhance anything that you've got already so far. Or if you're just starting out, it's the first thing that you've got and you're like, yes, that's it, put a pin in that, and I'll keep that for a later date. And then you can actually see how you grow and adapt and change, and that's a much better, healthier place to come from as an actor.
I agree 100%. Yes. And now I'm thinking, what was the most interesting or exciting project that you worked on?
There's a few, but my passion's always been musical theatre, and for someone that hasn't been to London, been to drama school, it's a very London-centric world, and it's very difficult to get in. So when I saw on a casting site that there was a brand new musical and it was based in the north, my ears pricked up, and I was like, ooh, that sounds really interesting. And one thing you have to be when you're going for an audition is you have to be savvy, because there are some people out there and they're not trying to trick you up. They're just trying to test your creativity. And literally the blurb for this musical was, we need male and female actors and singers to perform in a new musical that's being written. We want you to prepare a monologue and a rock or indie ballad for the audition. That was it. No synopsis of the show, no synopsis of characters, no flavor of what it's about. And it was like, okay, well, how do I prepare for this? What are they expecting? And it wasn't a case of I could ask the director directly, because there was no information other than apply now on the button and click here and you do. So I'd applied for it, and it had gotten to about a week before, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I had to literally, I looked at the wording. I thought, if it's not been done on purpose, then it's something that's maybe low budget, or maybe someone that's very inexperienced, and I can do one of two things. I can either help them and guide them, or I can say, your project's not for me. But either way, I'm going to audition for this. So I looked into the wording, and it said rock or indie ballad. So I was like, maybe it's some kind of like new age rock opera. Like when they made the Jerry Springer show, and it was a proper rock opera with loads of rock and roll kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, maybe it's that kind of thing. So I was like, okay, let's think of like rock and roll musicals that have just come out recently. And there was the Meatloaf one on the West End, and there was Tina Turner. And I was thinking something along those kind of lines. And I'd settled on doing a Meatloaf song. I can't even remember which one now. I think it was maybe I'd Do Anything for Love. And it was in my range, and I was singing it well. It was all good. And then about 2 days before the audition, I was kind of questioning it. My throat felt funny, and you kind of do all those self-paranoid things. Like, I'm not quite good enough, or I'm not quite ready yet. And I was talking myself out of the audition. And my partner had realized that something was going on, and I wasn't as active in the preparation. She was like, oh, how are you feeling about your audition? Are you nervous? Are you excited? And I said, oh, I'm probably not going to do it. I'm going to wait till the next one. And she just looked at me and said, if you don't do this audition, I'm going to drag you in by your earlobes. And she doesn't even remember saying this now, but I was like, okay, fair enough, I'll do it. So I was, again, kind of back to square one, and it was a couple of days to go, and I hadn't even got a monologue yet or anything. I was just like, I felt loads of pressure, and it was all self-imposed. So then we were just watching a film, and it was Moulin Rouge, and I suddenly thought, Moulin Rouge, how perfect is this? They're looking for a rock or indie ballad for a new musical, and the whole of Moulin Rouge is just rock or indie songs that have been made into a musical. How perfect is that? Kind of almost foreshadowing myself. So I was like, yeah, I ended up doing your song that Ewan McGregor does in the show. And I got the backing track and I practiced it and it fit really, really nicely. And I was like, cool, that's amazing. I've got the song. I know it well enough and I'm competent enough at it. Great. Now it's the monologue. And it's probably, acting is probably the area I'm least experienced in at this time. And I was going, what do I do? And I was just like going, right, keep on the whole rock opera kind of theme. And I just literally Googled rock monologues and loads came up. And I was just siphoning through and I picked up on one and it was a cool, maybe 1.5 minute thing. And it was about a drummer who was setting up the world's first all percussion 5-piece band. And it's just crazy. Reading through it, it's just him talking about how he's going to set up this band and change the world. And then he goes off on a tangent talking about a rat that lives in the studio. And he's adopted it as the band's pet or the mascot, and it lives in the bass drum. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Okay, I can play with that. And I wanted to show a different dynamic to me, because when I go in there, I know it's very much like a normal job interview to start with. You go in, you kind of say, hi, this is me, and you get introduced to the panel and you get asked a bit about yourself. So I was like, I want to show something that's completely different from me. And like, it sounded like they were asking a lot about characters. So I wanted to be a bit bolder and a bit bigger. So I kind of made them rock and roll, like I'm from America. Yeah, man. So I was like, yeah, that's the kind of voice that I wanted to do. And there was a few videos of people doing different versions of this. But one thing I noticed on was that everybody was skipping around the rat thing. And I was like, but the rat thing's the coolest part of it. It's the thing that kind of makes it stand out. And they just kind of glossed over it. So I kind of said, right, I'm going to take him from almost doing this piece to camera, trying to sell his band, to kind of drifting off and going talking about this rat and just being completely infatuated with this rat for no reason, and then kind of snapping back into reality. And as a matter of fact, when I went into the audition, I'm the kind of person that likes to rehearse and prepare and know exactly what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it, and how I'm going to do it. I never really go off piste. But when I opened the door to the audition room, what was in front of me? A drum set. And I just took the decision there and then. I was like, I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it because I'm a drummer in this band and I want to promote it. So I was like, yes, I'm going to use it. And it got to the end of the audition, and it's the last thing I did was I slammed my hands on the drums and I went, so you ready to rock? And I could see like the director, holding back laughter because he enjoyed it. You can get that difference between mocking and somebody who's enjoying something genuinely. And I could tell I was getting a really good vibe from him. And by the time I'd driven home, which was about an hour away, I'd got an email saying, fantastic, we want to call you back. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. That's really cool. And I'd only auditioned as ensemble, but when I spoke to him in the callback, they were like, yeah, we really, really liked you. We liked your vibe. We liked what you did. You can sing and you can act. So we're really happy with all those things. We had an idea of a few characters, maybe more minor characters in the show that haven't been fully padded out. So we want you to read in for one of these parts and basically see how it goes. And if it goes well enough, we might want you to play this part in the show, as well as maybe some others, because it's only a minor role. You might still be ensemble, but you get to do this as well. So it's kind of cool. So I did this reading, and they were like, by the end of it, it was just really a chat like we're doing now. And it had gone really super well. I felt great. And again, by the time I'd got home, I had a text message saying it'll come without a shadow of a doubt that you know how well it went, and tick VG, you've got the role as well as doing this, the ensemble. And I was just like, wow, that's amazing. That's really, really cool. And I'd learned a bit more about the show. and I found out it's a musical that's based on Dante's Inferno. So, it's kind of like medieval poetry. And I was like, oh, cool. Totally getting that and reading it, because everyone's heard of the Seven Deadly Sins and Dante's Inferno and all these things, especially from things like the Da Vinci Code, that kind of open people up to this world a little bit more. So I was like, cool, let's actually like try and get down with some medieval poetry. And medieval poetry at any time is quite difficult to learn, but Italian translated medieval poetry is interesting. So I bought I bought his whole works, the divine literature, if you like, and read through it, and I kind of got to understand it. I needed to use obviously some translation or to take some time and figure bits out, but I got there and I learnt it. And by the time a couple of months later, this is we're talking, it's August 2019, I think, was the time when we had like a private showing of the production, and it was literally just the actors that would be standing up reading their bit to a select audience. And the idea was that the creative team wanted to rewrite the final rewrite, figure out what works, what doesn't work, take things out, put things in, and play the songs to a select audience and get that feedback. And that's all it was. But about a week or two before, the lead for the show had to pull out. He said, I've been offered a part in a film. It's what I want to do. This was more of a challenge for me, but it's not my bag. And I've been offered this part in a film, so I'm going to go and do that. So it didn't really put a spanner in the works. The director said, yeah, absolutely fine, crack on. You've got to do what's best for you. And you've not really signed anything yet, so you're not signed up. So yeah, crack on. But it was a case of, what do we do now? And one of the fellow castmates who's playing the female lead, she said, well, what about Tony? He was good in the audition. He's he can get us through these 3 days, and you can make a decision after then if you want to recast it or just use him. And so I read in for the part, and by the end of the day, the financer of the whole production was in the audience. He'd spoken to Colin, the director, and he'd signed me up. Basically, I had a contract in my hands at the end of the 3 days saying you're the lead. And it's now 2021. Birdsong in Bedlam is the show. It's out in August, the Bolton Albert Halls, and it's just grown and grown and grown, and it's now gone from auditioning for a job and for a role to a real passion play of mine. The more I've gotten to know the story and how Colin is directing it and wants it to go, the more I'm just in love with it. It's a piece that touches on mental health, particularly men's mental health, because there's a big stigma in it, especially at the moment, with suicide rates and things like that. It touched on suicide. It touched on drugs, alcohol. It has cult references from things like The Shining, going back to the medieval poetry, and it's got references of Shakespeare in there, and all these little details. He keeps like drip feeding things to us. We just had the photo shoot last week, and the photography is coming back, and it's all gothic and steampunk, and it's the first time we've actually seen the characters other than artistic interpretations. We've seen them all in their costumes, and that's really cool. And I feeding off that is so important, because it's just keeping that fuel going, because it should have been on twice already, and it's been postponed. And with everything that's gone off with the pandemic, theatres have been closing down, and productions have suddenly been stopping. There was that kind of moment of, are we actually going to get this on the stage? Is it going to happen? And Colin said, we've made cuts, we've made changes to make sure that you get at least 1 week. The idea was to do a week in Bolton and then go to 4 other theatres for a week run each. And then potentially, if it gets momentum and if the money's there from those runs, we could then potentially go on tour. And I was like, think about, maybe a year and a half ago, when I was auditioning for an ensemble piece that might be going on for a week, to now being the lead in a show that potentially could go on tour. That's kind of cool. but obviously now, because of the finances and the pandemic, we've still got the Bolton week, but nothing set in stone afterwards. So it could do amazingly well. I believe it will do amazingly well. Just I'm not being biased and saying, come buy tickets and see a show. I am saying come buy tickets and see a show, but because it's something you've never seen before, it's going to be absolutely amazing. If you think you're not into musicals, don't worry, this is not a musical. It is a musical, but it's no musical you've ever seen before, and there's more twists and turns in this than there is in an M. Night Shyamalan film. Honest to God, it's absolutely amazing. There's about 13 original songs. There's an album for that as well, which is on all good streaming sites. And the amount of detail, there's the stuff in there that most people it'll gloss over and they won't even notice. There's some people out there that look for Easter eggs in like TV shows and stuff like that, and there's loads of Easter eggs in this that you'll notice if you're looking for them. And yeah, it's just going to be an absolute crazy but brilliant show, and it's actually possibly worked out in our favor. We don't know at the moment, but I mean, with the situation as we're recording this, things are starting to open up. Theatres are allowed to open up again, so hopefully people are going to start going to like London and the West End and seeing all the shows that they love seeing. So by this August, we're hoping that there's going to be that lull where people go, I want to see something new. And hopefully we can be that gap fill. But yeah, it's going to be absolutely amazing. I can't wait to just like really we've got rehearsals coming up in the next 3 months, and it's 3 weeks of rehearsals, including 1 week in the theatre, and then we're live, we're going. So yeah, it's something that I'm obviously really passionate about.
Yeah, definitely. I can see it. I can feel it. And I think that's great.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely great. And also directors.
And again, it's again, one of those things that like, I love musical theatre, whether it's the old classics or some of the more newer things. I always love going to the theatre and seeing musicals. And like I love thinking back and just seeing that advert pop up on my screen just for a new musical. You need to prepare a monologue and a rock or indie ballad. To come from that to now, where I'm the lead of the show and I've recorded the album, we've just had the photo shoot, the press releases are coming out, and it's going on at the Bolton Abbott Halls. Peter Kay did his stand-up shows from there, and The Who have played there, and all these amazing artists that have been there and will continue to be from there. That amazing theatre. It's just like, wow, I'm going to be treading those same boards. That's a dream for any actor. And there's been a lot of rejection in between, before then and after. So yeah, it's not necessarily made me or anything, even though we're still, on this side of it. But I just feel really, really thankful that I did leave at the time that I did, and it's all fallen into place. And maybe there's some kind of divine intervention happening, although I'm not specifically a believer in that. I believe we make our own fate. And just by working hard and going for the opportunities that I believe in, and just working my ass off really in every audition that I do for that one payoff is great. And I've had a few payoffs. Yeah, I've had a few jobs, but this one in particular is a real passion of mine.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, nothing's happening without hard work, and it doesn't matter how much talent a person has. So I believe hard work is pretty much majority of percentage rather than just talent, even though that's important. So let me just ask you about your studio, because I read on your website that you've built a home recording studio so you can actually do voice acting during the pandemic. So tell me,
right.
Yeah, so tell me, like, did you do it only because of the pandemic, or did you do it before, or what was?
Well, coming from a singing background, I kind of wanted to record myself, and I quickly learned that I absolutely hate the sound of my own voice. I don't know if you're the same, but I know a lot of creatives absolutely hate it. And it comes to editing, I've got maybe a backlog of songs of about maybe 500 songs that I've tried to record, and I've gone, nope, sounds horrible, bin it, and it just gets stored in a hard drive somewhere and just gets dust. So yeah, I'd bought a couple of microphones, but that's literally all I knew was just like, microphones, record sound, it goes in the computer, yeah. And when the pandemic hit, I was like, I've got these microphones, and yeah, what can I do with them? How can I do stuff? And I'd heard of voiceover, but I didn't know kind of what it entails and what it's all about. So I just did a bit of research. I took a couple of online classes. And I was like, wow, there's an awful lot of things that goes into it before the voice comes out and the microphone picks it up. And it is different from a setup that you would have for, say, your self tapes or your auditioning, or if you're doing your reels for an actor. But there are some similarities into how you go around setting that up. So the first thing is just to do some research and do some courses. There's lots of courses out there. There's some free ones, which aren't always the best. But they will give you some insight. But if you've got some disposable income, look at like things like Gravy for the Brain or the Voiceover Network. They're really good resources to have because they don't just like talk at you. You learn with them, so they teach you, and you actually do things to learn about how it all gets fitted together. And one of those things is the studio, because the studio is just a part of it, because obviously you have to act and you have to train, you have to warm up the voice, and all of these good things that you should be doing before, during and after every recording or shoot or whatever. But as it comes to the studio, yeah, I learned very quickly. I'd think I was recording and it sounds really good, and then you play it back and you go, oh, I can hear the echo, or I can hear my lips going, and how do I counter all of this, that, and the other? And it's very easy for me to kind of go, no, I don't want to do that, to flip it around and go, actually, I'm going to learn and figure out how to do it all, and what is the link of getting it from my sound box, if you like, into a product. So one of the key things I was taught about was the difference between soundproofing and sound treatment. The main difference is expense. It literally comes down to that. So you'll know because you work with a lot of sound and video. But yeah, so soundproofing is literally trying to stop any sound that you don't want in your recording space from coming in, and that in turn stops the sound from your studio coming out. But that means it can literally mean stripping your room bare, taking it back to its bare bones, and you can end up with you can get plasterboarding that is acoustically treated. You can lower ceilings and have a false ceiling, again with acoustic treatment. You have a raised floor area, door seals, window seals, vent seals, all these, the paneling and all this, that, and the other, and the treatment on top of that. You're talking tens of thousands of pounds if you're willing and have the ability to have that. That's great. Or buying a booth for your house or your garage or your garden or whatever, you can buy these booths. And I did seriously look into it and was looking at loans for like, £6,000, £7,000, £8,000 at the cheapest. And I was like, God, this is an expensive game. And then I was like, let's look into doing it on a budget. How can I do it on a shoestring? And so I found out about sound treatment, and, you can easily treat a room by, if you wanted to go very cheap, you could, save up your egg carton boxes and stick them on the wall. If you really, really wanted to, getting some heavy duty curtains, which is, I've got in here, heavy duty curtains, and I actually got a door curtain put in. You can go to your local hardware shop and you can get door seals and window seals that are just little bits of sticky plastic that just, when you close your doors or your windows, it seals them tighter. And doesn't stop all the sound coming in, of course, but it just helps that seal be a bit more firm. And it also helps with the heating bills. So that's another Brucey bonus, if you like. Learning about sound treatment as well. You can eventually, if you've got the money, or if you're earning a little bit of money, you can go and get the foam panels, which I have got. I would advise anyone that's thinking of setting up a studio to not stick it to the walls directly, because it either doesn't stick or it sticks too well. So if you ever want to move home and you're trying to scrape it off, it ain't going to come off easy. Or if you want to redecorate or whatever, it's a massive pain. So what I've done is I've literally, you can buy I think they tend to do them in packs of 24 for the tiles. Buy a load of them online and spray stick them with just a little spray adhesive that you can get for like £3 or £4 and stick them to MDF. And that way you're not ruining your walls. You can kind of customize it how you want. You can move panels around much easier. And just do it in little stages as well. There is no need to like try and make your room into an echo chamber and and have all the sound absorbed. Because actually, if you over-treat your room, it can be bad as well, because you get a warping and a distortion from the voice. And if you get that onto your software, you ain't removing it. You can't remove it. Or you struggle to remove it. It's a real nightmare to try and edit that type of thing out. So you have to look at that. A lot of people don't realize as well how low the ceiling is. The ceiling bounces a lot of sound around, and it tends to be off the desk up to the ceiling, and it's bouncing around, and that's it. So do little bits and patch it almost and see what works. If you can see behind me as well, I've got a piece of canvas art. It's actually Thomas Shelby, because I did some filming as a supporting actor for Peaky Blinders season 6, hopefully coming out this year, and hopefully you'll see me kind of being in the background. But yeah, like with those, they tend to be hollow, which is quite interesting, and you can actually get the foam panels and you can put them behind the artwork, so you're not ruining the look and the aesthetic of your room, and it's actually doing its job as well. It's actually sound dampening, and you get to have some nice artwork on. So I've done a bit of that as well. That was just, again, from networking, somebody saying you can actually do this instead, and you can still keep a nice pretty room, keep the missus happy, and all this kind of stuff. So that's kind of cool.
Totally. Yeah, thank you so much taking through the whole process, like technical aspects.
There's a lot more to it.
Of course. I mean, we could talk for the next 4 hours, or actually 4 days or 4 months.
Easily. Absolutely.
The audio spectrum, like there are so many things to know, but I think you've given pretty much nice kind of like template or plan or advice for anybody who wants to do this and kind of like build their own studio and work with that. I think you gave a lot of good tips. So thank you so much. And
that's not a problem. And if anybody wants to learn more about setting up a studio or has specific questions, they can go on my website, tonyowens.co.uk, and ping me a message on there. I've got a little messenger thing I'll get back to as soon as I can do. And yeah, any questions like that on setting up, I can happily answer some questions on. If there's too many questions, I might have to charge, but but no,
of course.
Because I mean, I know what it was like being in that boat of not knowing what I was doing. And I'm still, in quite a lot of respects, in that same boat. I only know what I know through troubleshooting and figuring it out and researching. And I was screaming at some points, just thinking, if there was anyone that knew how to do that, I'd have been so grateful for that information 6 months ago. But now I found it. And sometimes it's just like there are questions about the voiceover world or industry, or how you record or whatever. And this goes for acting as well and singing, that you don't necessarily know that you've got those questions until you come with, or you find or stumble across the problem in the first place. So it's just the way the business works. And if there's not as much guidance, or you don't know the correct terminology or whatever, it's very difficult to figure it out. you've got a couple of choices. You can either persevere or you can network and try, and you just ask, there's no such thing as a stupid question. It's just knowing if you know the answer or not, and being brave enough to kind of say, listen, I know I might be sounding stupid, but I'm having this problem. This isn't working for me. How do I do it? And if I can offer that to people, then great.
Absolutely. By the way, do you have a YouTube channel?
I don't actually.
I think
one of the few things that people often
do like tutorial videos on. You can film from your studio and you can actually talk about these things, and then when people see that, they might actually they will comment questions. You can help them, and in the end, it might turn into a business or anything like that, or more networking. So I think you should think about it.
Yeah. This is something I've not thought about, actually.
These kind of videos are very popular on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I'll admit that it's one of the first places I look to is how do I do this? And I go onto YouTube and I see somebody's doing it from their perspective, but maybe not necessarily from a voiceover. A lot of the stuff I found is for independent music artists that are recording music tracks, and it tends to be guitar inputs and stuff like that. And I'm going, it's not quite right, but I know roughly what you mean. So let's try and figure it out a bit more. And it sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, maybe from the voiceover perspective, maybe it would be handy to have that. I know the voiceover network and Gravy for the Brain, they do have a big resource library to them, and they offer that to their customers. But when you've not got regular income coming in, like I said, because I budgeted so stringently, I had to move away from those things because I just couldn't afford either the monthly outgoings or the stand-up fees, and it's a shame that there isn't. I understand that it's obviously a business and they have to make money, and it shouldn't be for free because they've worked hard to do that, and they're the pros. They know what they're talking about. But to get somebody started in this kind of world, in the voiceover world, it's a shame there isn't more guidance. So yeah, maybe that's something I will look into.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. So thank you so much for being here. And yeah, it was a pleasure.
No problem.
It was a pleasure. And I will link to your website in the description of the video on YouTube, and I will share this everywhere. And I wish you good luck. And also I'm looking forward to your future projects. So again, thank you so much for being here.
Brilliant. No, it's not a problem anytime. And if you want to follow up, we can do a follow up later on if you like.